We are here today with Kelly Malloy, who has a very unique perspective on a knee replacement because she's coming from a caregiver's perspective, which I have not ever had the pleasure of talking about on my platform because I've always been the patient. So I haven't seen it from my husband's point of view. So this will be a very interesting conversation. So, Kelly, welcome today. I'm so glad that you're here. I'm very thankful that you offered to do this for me today because I think that it's a perspective that doesn't get talked about enough. So, Kelly's husband actually is the one that had the knee replacement. So, I would love to hear from you, Kelly. Was this your husband's first knee replacement?
Let me just say thank you for having me here, Susie. Yeah, I'm happy to be here. And it wasn't, well, it was his first knee replacement, but it wasn't his first orthopedic surgery. Let's put it that way. He had an ankle fusion a few years ago, but
Okay.
this was the first major, joint replacement. So,
Okay. And then how did he recover from the ankle fusion? Was
uh, yeah, which
Were
is
there
it's a
some?
great question because very different.
Yeah.
So the ankle fusion, which I would consider to be a considerably smaller surgery, um, was kind of traumatic. We learned some things about his pain threshold. I learned just how unprepared I was as a caregiver. I mean, even to the point where like we didn't even have ice bags or an ice machine. Like I was using frozen peas, and like just I was so completely unprepared for that.
Right.
So, and stress, I think so that's kind of my bag. What I work with people on largely is stress. And I know that when your cortisol levels are high, it throws everything off, including your healing,
Yeah.
including inflammation. So the fact that we were unprepared for me and for him increased the stress levels for both of us. And that was not good for his healing.
Yeah. And because you brought up what you do for a living, I would love for you to talk about that for a second because it comes in throughout this whole procedure. So I think it's really important that people know where you're coming from, your perspective on things, because I don't know that it's like most people's caregivers' perspective. So I would love for you to talk a little bit about that.
Sure, sure. So I'm a certified health coach, and primarily I work with people on root cause issues, right? So figuring out whatever their symptoms are, whatever their health challenges I like to get to the root cause. And a lot of times that could be food sensitivities, hidden food sensitivities that people aren't aware of, or other things that are raising inflammation in the body, like stress. So
Yeah.
those are my specialties. Yeah.
I
And
love that you brought that up because there's so much of that in play throughout this procedure, which is why I wanted the opportunity to talk to you and to kind of pick your brain on this because I think that it comes up a lot more than just the physical recovery. I think that there's ways that you can support your body. So let's step back and kind of talk about your perspective as a caregiver, bringing your husband through this. How do you think your perspective was based on the information that your doctor gave you? So you're at your appointment with your doctor or with your husband at his doctor's appointment. What was your perspective coming from all the information that his doctor provided you?
Great question. So, well, first, we were both excited to have the surgery. So, this is something that he had wanted for a long time. So, we were excited about it, so much so that when they offered us the opportunity to move the date up of the surgery, we said yes, right? Because he was in a lot of pain and it was limiting, a lot of his life. But having experienced the ankle fusion, I was also nervous and wanted to make sure that we were prepared, which his doctor was phenomenal. His surgeon was top notch. The staff was great, but you don't know what you don't know, right? And so, having had that experience with the ankle fusion, I knew that I needed to be better prepared. That we needed to get more information, and so I would say that they prepared us in terms of the actual surgery, like what to expect from that, and just, the basic information. But it really wasn't until I got into your content that I realized how much we didn't know,
Yeah.
and how much, could have helped and did help us because we did get in there in time.
Yeah.
But
And it was kind of serendipitous how we actually connected. Maybe we should talk a little bit about that. So we knew each other on a business level because we had some things in common. So how did you stumble upon the fact that I was a knee replacement coach?
yeah. So, yeah, it was serendipitous. And I would like to say, to me, it's like a God thing, right? So here I was, like, getting ready to help and support my husband through a major surgery, a major joint surgery. And I was stressed. My stress level was super high, especially since now the date had been moved up. And I didn't want to go through what we went through with the ankle fusion. It was crazy. So we were in a leadership group together online, and then I was working on getting my website redone. And so I knew you, from our leadership program, but then as I was working with this woman on my website and I was in like her page, I saw your name in there and I knew you, but I didn't know what you did. Sorry. And so there I saw that you mentioned something about, knee replacements. And it was just like, oh my gosh, like Susie has something to do with knee replacements. So then I went to your website because you had the same wonderful lady do your website who's doing mine. And I went to your website and I loved it. And of course, realized what you did. And it was just like, oh my gosh, like I need this. Like this is exactly what I need at exactly the right time. So it was awesome.
Right. So then you went to the website and you found something and somehow got on my email list.
Yes. Yeah, I think I downloaded one of your freebies.
Okay.
It
Yeah.
was
And
phenomenal. I
then
remember.
what happened after you downloaded one of the freebies? What was the next step for you and your husband?
So, I mean, you had a lot in that freebie. I have to tell you, like, part of me was like, I can't believe she gave this away for free.
Yeah.
But there was also that realization that, oh wow, like we don't we don't know what we need to know. We don't have enough information. And
Right.
so that was where it was like, and I especially, like my husband, I was trying to kind of shield him a little because he was preparing himself. He's self-employed, so he was preparing himself psychologically for being out of work for 8 to 12 weeks,
Yeah.
um, for our income and bills and all that kind of stuff. And he was stressed enough about that. So I was trying to take on the load as the caretaker of learning what we needed to learn about the prep work
Right.
and making sure everything was in place that we needed. And just so that I could be a good support to him so that I wasn't stressed because I knew he was going to be stressed with pain, right? And dealing with healing and being out of work. I wanted to make sure that I wasn't also stressed with, oh my gosh, we don't have any ice bags, and I didn't know we needed to do this, and I wasn't prepared for that. So that's where I was like, just give me everything, give me
Yeah.
everything to prepare.
So you grabbed that freebie, you grabbed the pre-op freebie and somehow found I Am Titanium, my group on Facebook,
Yep.
and then somehow realized that more targeted support was necessary
Yeah.
at
And
some point.
honestly, I mean, you helped with that a lot
Mhm.
because once I got your freebie, you were also communicating with me, right?
Yeah.
I was getting your emails and I was, seeing little things in there that I was like, oh, right. And that's what really was making me realize I needed more support. And just knowing that there's someone who has gone through this, right, has had the experience and then is coaching other people through it. um, it's kind of like, so what I do with, I've been through the process of changing my food, of identifying my food sensitivities, of getting rid of the inflammation, healing my gut. So when I have somebody who's just stepping into that arena, you know, I'm sort of that guide on the side to be like, yeah, I've been through that. And guess what? That's going to pass. And, this is going to get better. And this is what you need to make that a little easier. So, I think that's really helpful that you
Yeah.
do.
So you were able to get yourself into the knee replacement hub. We had conversations, and thankfully, I knew that you were with Young Living. And because I love that company, I was able to offer you a discount. And you got into the program. And then what happened? Because now you're quickly having to learn information, and your husband's date is coming like super quick. How did
Mhm.
everything transpire up to your surgery, up to his surgery date?
Yeah, so I mean, I felt like it was pretty easy. The hub was really well laid out. You had everything identified, like here's where you go if you need help with this, and here's the mindset stuff, which that was phenomenal because that was a huge piece of what I needed to work on for myself and for him, was to keep myself in a state of peace and to also encourage him and reassure him, um, especially when he was feeling certain things after the surgery. So I think it was pretty straightforward once I was in the hub to be able to find the pieces that I needed. And I did sort of regret that I didn't find out about it sooner, because you had some great areas that were like 6 weeks before your surgery, and go in there and do these things, like order this or prepare this, or we didn't have the luxury of doing it that far out because we were in crunch time. But so it was easy for me to find the places that did pertain to us and that
Right.
would be beneficial for us. So yeah,
Right. And
easy.
then your husband had his surgery. And how long ago did your husband have his surgery?
So his surgery was March 3rd. So I don't even know
Okay.
what it is.
So it's about 5 months then.
Yeah.
What month are we in? 8. Yeah. It's about 5 months. So how is your husband doing? How would you say his recovery went, and how is he doing today?
His recovery was remarkable. It really was. I mean, you have that first week, right, where you're dealing with the pain and all of that.
Right.
But he did really well. We um we astonished the doctors. They were really amazed. He's a painting contractor. So 8 weeks he was back to work, up and down ladders, carrying 30-foot ladders around. I will say he was great about doing his exercises.
Yeah.
From the moment that they said, start doing these, he was diligent about doing them regularly. So that was him. He did a great job with that.
Yeah.
And he did really, really well with his food. I mean, he didn't have a whole lot of choice because I was preparing all of the food.
Yeah.
But he ate really well, and he wanted that. He wanted, I talked to him beforehand and I said, look, we're going to do a low, super low inflammatory diet for you. Um, we're going to add in things that are going to help reduce inflammation and promote healing, and just keep you off. Like, he has certain foods that he knows promote inflammation in his body. And so he was like, yes, please, I want to. So he did. He did great. He ate really well, hydrated really well, all of those things. So yeah, I was blown away myself, really,
Yeah.
because I was prepared. I was
Yeah.
prepared for a stressful time, and it was really great. I actually told people, I said, not that I would encourage anyone to get a knee replacement if they didn't need one,
Hmm.
but it was really like a time for us. Like, we really enjoyed our time together with him being home.
Yeah. And that's a really unique perspective because a lot of people have this trepidation about being away from work for so long and being home for so long, when really it is a really beautiful time for our body's healing process and for us to really get to know our bodies a little bit more and the way we're processing our own healing. Because healing brings up an entire array of emotions. And when we can kind of respect the fact that our bodies are doing so much work in one time frame, they are doing so much work. And I loved how you said that he did his exercises, because it's the one thing that I didn't want to do half the time, right? But I also knew what was going to come from pushing myself to get those exercises done and the strengthening that comes with that. And you also mentioned food, which I think is amazing. I actually have a module inside the knee replacement hub that needs an edit and an update now, because it does talk about anti-inflammatory foods and an anti-inflammatory diet. And now I've come to learn that anti-inflammatory is not the same for everybody.
Mm,
So I would kind of like to explore that a little bit more because that's also a very important component to healing is making sure that we're supporting our bodies throughout our healing process. So I know that you said that food was really important in your husband's recovery. What kind of things set you up for that kind of success, knowing what was going to be anti-inflammatory for him?
right. So, I mean, the first thing, so I do something called IgG testing in my practice. So we had done that for Craig pretty much when I first met him.
Okay.
Um, well, met him again. We knew each other from high school, but so we knew his trigger foods. We knew the foods from that IgG testing that would raise inflammation in his body. And he'd been pretty good, but here and there he would have some dairy or some gluten. And so when it came time for his surgery, I mean, even before the surgery, we were like, it's all out, and he was on board with that, like I said. So
Yeah.
that was a huge piece. And that's something that can be different for everybody.
Right.
Some people's immune systems just, there's a number of reasons it can happen, but the immune system just doesn't recognize that food as food. And when it comes into the body, it attacks it. And that attack raises inflammation. So
Yeah.
we're not talking about like food allergies where somebody has like an anaphylactic response. These are more delayed reactions. So they can take days, multiple days to produce any symptoms. So we did that. That was like top of the list was none of his food allergens were in. No sugar. And he loves his maple syrup, but we really, really cut back on even that so
Yeah.
that he's, very, very low glycemic diet. Um, and just lots of vegetables. We did a lot of things, we did ginger, we did supplements that we use, a lot of them through Young Living that are beneficial for that, for reducing inflammation. Lots of Ningxia, which is an antioxidant drink that we use to detox the body because, after you have a surgical procedure, there's a lot of stuff that gets put in the body.
Mm.
There's a lot of meds that he did have to take for pain, and so we had to do some things to help detox those out.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, so those were some of the things that we did to really and people really were amazed at how well I was amazed, but he
Yeah.
really did incredibly well. And he has a long, his knee replacement wasn't just it wasn't just uh, degenerative. Like he'd been in an accident years ago, and so he had a lot of trauma to that side of his body. And like his right knee is perfectly fine.
Right.
He's not going to need a replacement on that side. So there was a lot for him that he was dealing with, and any surgery, any medical procedure is a little traumatic for him because he spent a year and some months in a hospital after his accident. So
Yeah.
all of that stuff, like I said,
Yes.
stress contributes to inflammation.
Yeah.
So we were amazed, yeah, at how well he
Yeah.
did.
So he had a lot of emotional processing, you would say. And the tools and resources that you had to help him, what would you say was the most valuable to help him with the emotion
Yes.
side?
So there were two things that I really have to thank you for. One was just having a place to check in and to hear what was normal, right? So almost every day he would say, "Oh, like this is happening, or there's swelling over here, or this, I have this weird feeling, or this really strange burst of pain." And I could go into the hub and be like, "Oh, wait, that's normal." Like,
Yeah.
or that's called a zinger, or
Yeah.
little things that I could teach him that he'd be like, "Okay, that's normal." And so it would just put him at ease. Or I
Right.
could even say, "This is going to probably last, for a couple of weeks." Or there was that kind of information.
Yeah.
So that was super helpful. And then the other thing that was just amazing that I didn't understand at first, I kept seeing Yetter Getter here and there throughout the hub. And I was like, what is this Yetter Getter thing? And then I finally got it. And that whole idea of when someone says, well, I haven't gotten to 120 degrees yet.
Right.
And so he
Yeah.
was doing that. We would go to PT and he'd be like, oh my gosh, I'm not at 120 or I'm not at this or I haven't, and he would really kind of be beating himself up for not hitting a certain goal. And
Right.
I'd be able to say, not yet.
Exactly.
That, like, just mind blown.
Yeah.
That one little word at the end of a statement changes everything.
Yeah.
So yeah, so thank you for that. That was really huge.
Well, of
Um,
course, absolutely. I wish I could take full credit for that, but I swear that was God given. That was something that came down from the heavens because it's just a way to instill hope in a situation that there doesn't seem to be very much hope. Because when you're in the trenches and you're looking for every last degree to be able to get your full bend or to get your full extension, it gets really sticky at the end because it took me 3 months to get my zero extension consistently. And in that 3 months, your brain can tell you all kinds of things are going wrong. When really it's just belief that your body is healing all along, right? Your body is doing what it's supposed to do. It's just taking a little bit. It's just taking a little bit longer. I found out after the fact it was because I was still sleeping with a pillow under my knee, but I was obsessed with my body healing and I wanted it to rest at night and sleep. And if that took a few extra weeks for my knee, then that's what happened. And I don't recommend that for anyone, but that's what worked for me. So, um, but now being 5 months out, are there things that you still go through with your husband or need to kind of pivot around sometimes?
it's really actually it's just a great success story.
Good. Great.
He's doing great. He's playing golf even better than he ever did before, and that's his like passion.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I mean, so he does like after working a long day, like it'll be a little stiff, but
Mhm.
he hasn't had to ice in months. He
Yeah.
really hasn't.
That's
And
really good.
yeah, so it's really been great.
Awesome. Well,
Yeah.
thank you, Kelly, so much for your time today. I will say that if anybody in the audience would like more information on what Kelly does, I will go ahead and link her information in the description. Thank you, Kelly, for taking the time with me today and explaining the caregiver side of this procedure and what exactly it was that you went through and you processed right along with your husband through this entire procedure. So thank you so much for joining me.